formal obligation to do that, and so we do try to get coaches to break the dawn and not do things that make the fields harder. Right.
Okay,
We're ready.
keep going.
We have some success at the older levels, not so much the younger levels. The T-ball coaches are just like enough that I have to take care of these like 15 kids.
Yeah.
I was curious if someone breaks out.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Are we ready?
Yeah.
Welcome, everybody. Marco, you want to? Okay,
Sure.
I call the meeting to order.
Yep. All right, I can get started. So good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Park and Recreation's February meeting. My name is Marco Rivero. I am the staff liaison to the PRC. I would like to remind our attendees that the PRC meeting will be recorded, and that has actually just begun. We ask that commissioners, presenters, and attendees mute your microphones and turn off your video feeds if you're not speaking. For those attending via telephone, you can mute and unmute your microphones by dialing *6. The top toolbar contains a raise your hand function in case a commission member or presenter has a question during the meeting. Commissioners and presenters may share their screens using the share content box above. And the chat box will also be checked routinely, mainly to address logistical questions or issues during the meeting. So during the public comment period and during agenda items discussion, the chair will recognize virtual participation first, and then in-person attendees will be able to comment. As way of information, we'll be holding a public comment period at the beginning of the meeting. Each public commenter will have up to 3 minutes for public comment, and I believe we have one public commenter identified for this meeting so far. And we will signal to the speaker once time is up. Thank you very much, and I'll turn it back over to our chair.
Great, thank you so much, Marco, and welcome everybody. I hope you had a wonderful day today. Cap off a perfect day, perfect meeting. Okay, so first item is reviewing the minutes. Do I have a motion to do minutes? Adam moves. Do I have a second? Any discussion?
No, good to go.
Hearing none. Is there any objection to minutes? Okay. Now we have public comment.
We do. We have Beth Kaiser on the line, and I will share my screen.
Hey, Beth.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much. So I've got 3 minutes. Is that right?
That is correct.
Terrific. All right, let's go ahead. So first off, I'll introduce myself. Thank you so much for the opportunity to give a few words. I'm Beth Kaiser. As some of you may know, I've served as a volunteer leader of restoration work in parks in the county, and in particular in Woodlawn Park for many years. And I also want to express my appreciation for the honor of receiving the Bill Thomas Award for Volunteer Service for 2022. And I'm offering these comments from my individual perspective and not on behalf of any group that I'm affiliated with. So I guess you could consider this a heads up on a stormwater detention vault that's been proposed for Woodlawn Park. It would be very large and very expensive, priced at around, I believe, costed out at around $50 million taxpayer funds. It would involve pipe upgrades upstream so that it would concentrate water flow into Woodlawn Park. The vault would be expected to be robust to not quite the 10-year flood, so it would be expected to overflow as is referred to as overland relief into the park in the event of a greater than 10-year storm. There are, as you can imagine, serious concerns from neighbors, including but not limited to concentration of flood risk for homes abutting the park, some of which are already in a FEMA floodplain and are in an RPA. A loss of the use of the park for 2 to 3 years with extreme disruption to neighbors. It would involve complete excavation of the north end of the park, reversing years of restoration work that's been done there by county staff as well as volunteers. It would, in my view, violate the 2023 Forestry and Natural Resources Plan, which indicates no loss of natural lands. The vault also does not appear necessary to make targeted inlet and pipe upgrades uphill and upstream that would protect uphill neighbors. Finally, the process has not, from my perspective, included engagement of other county experts, other county priorities, such as the Forestry and Natural Resources Plan and the tree canopy considerations or investigation of non-vault alternatives. Next slide, please. So just as a quick reference, the proposed vault would be in the orange square there. The RPA boundary is shown in red. The little section in blue there is where Lubber Run has its outfall. Next slide.
About 30
Here's-
seconds left.
Great, terrific. Here's what the north end of the park looks like now. There are about 87 trees and shrubs that we counted. Next slide. There are a number of nature observations that would indicate that the park is in fact a natural area, including in the north end of the park, which has nesting migratory birds and migratory bats. Next slide. And for reference, this is the Cardinal Elementary site. This is what the excavated north end of the park would look like under construction. And that's the timer. Thank you.
That's time. Thanks.
Thank you, Beth. We appreciate your time.
Appreciate it.
So that item will come up later on in our agenda. We can talk about it. So the next item on our agenda is talking about the budget. We had originally planned on having the Sports Commission joint meeting tonight, but that got delayed till March. And so we thought, well, this might be a good use of our time, which is to look at last year's budget and get oriented to what we're going to be seeing. The county manager is presenting the budget to the county board on Saturday. At the same day, it's my understanding the board will be voting on whether to raise taxes. And then I'm getting a briefing from Jane Rudolph on Monday. And then we will all get a briefing on the new budget at the joint sports commission meeting. So that's why I thought, because we have limited time together to review the budget, it would be a good idea to look at last year's and kind of go over things. Yes.
I want to mention that I think this is an excellent exercise additionally, because I think this year feels already very anomalous in comparison to the many years we've had in the past, where not only are we knowing that we're going to get cuts that we have to remute over, we're getting zero preparation for it, unlike previous years where we got not only an outlook, but a direct briefing on which sections to read even. And it's under lock and key this year, which means that we have to be really ready for defense.
Right.
Yeah.
More often.
I don't know. Yeah, whatever. I think defense probably.
Do we know what the explanation is for why it's so much?
I'm imagining cuts are still underway, right? Wouldn't you assume that? I would assume that they're still wrangling, and if, I mean, in my opinion, if Jane doesn't have it under lock and key, then that means that there's still a lot of turmoil. She's good at prioritizing her stuff. She's a good staff person. Yeah.
I mean, just speculating, I mean, the fact that the tax increase is on the same time as the budget, is that unusual? I mean, we're gonna talk about a tax, we're gonna rule on a tax increase before on the budget.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that is usual or unusual.
Yeah, that seems kind of strange, and I think it will really inform our budget analysis if the taxes are not increased or. So, Alex, you have a face on that's bothering me. I feel like you should be called on, but that's not the thing. Okay, all right.
So basically, this is an opportunity for us to figure this out, because this is going to be more of a possibility of us taking like section by section. We're gonna have a lot to write, a lot to talk about, probably all hands on deck probably for this budget letter, in my opinion. Yeah.
So I'm going to turn over to Marco, who I asked to walk us through how do you look up the budget? How do you figure out where to see what we're supposed to be looking at?
So thank you, Jill. So I'm sharing my screen here for those that are viewing online as well. But essentially, if you go on the county's webpage and you search through their government page, budget and finance, you'll be able to find last year's approved budget for 2024. This page contains an overview, a timeline, and more about the budget. But I guess the most important link is here, which is where you would be able to find the all-in-one budget document. So if you click that link, it'll take you directly to that page. I've had it, I guess not bookmarked, but it's where the Department of Parks and Recreation budget page is located, and that is on page number 333 of last year's budget. It shows essentially how the organization is, I guess the organization itself, how the budgets have changed from the prior year. There's a write-up on that, as well as kind of like a line item of how things are progressing in terms of the details of the budget. So reductions are one section, and then essentially feeding into that where specifically those numbers are coming from. What is interesting here is then you will see a table which talks about the department's financial summary, and it goes from the what was adopted the year prior, but also what has been done from the year prior to that, and then what is going to be adopted, or what was adopted for the year that this budget has been made for. So you can see the different line items here, the changes within the budgets, and then, you know, where everything lies. So you can certainly take a look at that as you progress through the budget. I believe this section in particular, the DPR section, goes all the way up until page 350. So there's a good 20 or so pages to review, if this is something that you would like to do in preparation for Saturday.
Can you keep going?
Yep.
So this is a nice table of the last 10 years. Yeah, so these are the kind of tables I like to look at that show trends over time and how much things have bounced around. I think it's an important thing to look at. And then keep going one more. Now this, that was
This is
338.
Yep.
And then most of the bulk of the rest of this is detailed notes starting in
Yep.
year 2015.
Right.
So you don't have to read all that. I would suggest going to that table that we just had on 338. And if something pricks your, you know, your interest, then go to this detailed notes page and look at that.
Yeah, but to your point, Joe, everything is noted here from FY 2015 through 2023, I believe.
Right. Yeah, that's weird.
Yep.
And I think that's the rest of the whole packet.
Oh, actually 2024. There you go. So it goes through the entire 10-year period, and it ends at 350.
Yeah, and so that's the end of the
Correct.
packet. So it's really, it seems, you know, one of the points I wanted to make in doing this is it seems a little overwhelming if you haven't done it before. Are there any questions on that? Because if not, I want to go and look at our last year's letter.
I think maybe we can talk, yeah, okay, maybe as we move on to the letter, we should talk about categories and
Yeah.
cuts and what our arguments have been in the past, maybe.
So what we talked about, I'm just going to read, everybody doesn't have this in front of them, so I'm just going to read the first paragraph, which summarizes everything. We are pleased with the county manager's emphasis, on invasive plant control and attention to tree maintenance and planting, but would like to see more funds directed towards securing healthy and abundant trees and the creation of natural areas. Continue to hold the view that understaffing of the county's nature centers is detrimental to the public, especially those living in heat islands. We also seek reassurance that the proposed reductions in supplies and equipment do not impact prior plans to convert to entirely electric vehicles and motorized equipment. So those are the big areas that we looked at. I think I'd just like to make one comment before I open up to discussion. I've had a nice series of walks with a lot of you, and I want to get walks with those that I haven't. Should have done one with you before. And excuse me. And one theme that came up repeatedly was working with volunteers as a way to expand the budget. We have volunteers working on invasive plant control. I know we have a lot of volunteers in the sports arena in a sense, but things like keeping the nature centers open and maybe even doing some trail maintenance are two particular items that came up that might be ways of stretching the budget. But there probably are more. And so I just want to say, I think that's probably one thing we'll be writing, especially if there are a lot of cuts. Is anybody else? So we're open for discussion.
I have a quick question. You
Yeah,
mentioned volunteering. I don't have any high schoolers of my own. I don't know too many. Are there required volunteering schools to have them do?
A lot of the programs there are.
Yeah.
I was wondering if we can kind of grab some of those, like, and kind of like get, like, shuffle them towards parks, because I don't know, growing up, we could kind of pick whatever, so we just kind of did whatever people offered to us, which is the easy teenager way of doing things. I don't know if that would be something to focus on, is that, I don't know.
I know that, especially Washington Liberty High School with the International Baccalaureate program, I believe they do have some reported hours for volunteer opportunities that they would need to have in order to graduate with that diploma.
Yeah, and National Honor Society as well. I think they are required to do 60 hours.
So I don't know if there's a connection we can have with someone who does, I don't know the system, but like, that might be kind of interesting to, like, I don't mind spearheading that, because I do work in education, just university, not high school,
But yeah, I feel like there's a lot of expertise and energy in Arlington that's maybe not being tapped.
I think that's a great idea, but I do think there are lots of existing opportunities, particularly in natural resources. You know, Armin runs a lot of projects all over the county, and they're all open to volunteers. I am a little more skeptical of the value of high schoolers going into something like nature centers, where they're probably going to have to be pretty high standard of training, and they're going to want people to stay for several months or perhaps even several years based on the investment they're making in the training, and high schoolers would be the best fit for that.
Yeah, yes, I mean, I think there's probably places for everybody. Yeah.
I mean, we got Sarah from college.
We did?
grad school.
Yeah.
That
How do we
works
do that?
too. Well, but
Elizabeth.
similar requirements, though. That
Oh,
point,
but there
more
was- it wasn't a
advanced population.
No, it was a.
But the visit was.
Coming to a meeting. Yeah.
Which I did have in high school. You do tend to all meetings and write about it.
Love
which
that.
I support that. But that's a different.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm just thinking of an idea. We can sort of, maybe this year we can talk about me like spearheading that somehow. Be interesting. But yeah, there's obviously the bigger issue of using volunteer work instead of budget, which is not.
Well, no, it's not ideal. It's not ideal, and it takes money to manage volunteers. You know, I mean, Jennifer Sauls will tell you that right away.
Yep.
But
Staff time.
yeah, it does take staff time. You can't just let people loose. So, go ahead.
If I think about the last time we had a big cut, I think it was 2019 or 2018. I feel like there was a lot of recreation programming, especially in the summer, that really frankly, at that point, I wasn't clear about, where we were having to talk about the cutting of a half FTE of a lifeguard or a full FTE of a lifeguard. And so I would say maybe like thinking through, you know, what that means in perspective of different recreation sports is something that we may have to put our perspective on. So for example, like, you know, losing 2 lifeguards this summer when we're already in a heat island effect and all these great things, terrible things, really decreases the ability for our parents to have a trusting environment to keep their kids safe and cool. And I think that like that is something that we may have to stretch and do for multiple recreation
Yeah,
programs this year. I could see that being another place where they do a lot of cuts like they did before. And maybe even full program cuts.
And they're very well, maybe the other half of this is going to be revenue enhancement. So hiking fees to get entrance to programs, hiking fees to be able to reserve a court or to take part in a nature center program. I mean, that's going to be the other half of this. They're going to have to raise more revenue to cover these programs.
and yet the demand for the programs is rising based on what I saw on the NAACP website, as well as what I heard from Susan Cunningham, my meeting with her Some of you have already heard, but, you know, there's an argument that because of the fentanyl crisis, we need to keep the teenagers busy in the afternoon and we need more programming to do that. So that could be another area though, if we need, you know, we can think about volunteers who might lead basketball at night. So, any other thoughts about what we'd like, what we're likely to?
Sorry, maybe just piggybacking on that, it's like a push and pull here of like tax increase, revenue increase. Something's gotta give.
I think we're gonna see all three.
Yeah,
Tax increase, we're gonna see
I think we'll have to see.
the increases, and they're gonna do targeted cuts.
Yeah.
Hopefully targeted, not across the board, but we may see some of both.
Yep.
Depending on how bad it is.
I didn't stop to look at what the proposed tax increase is. Did anybody else? So, you know,
I'll make one other comment, and that is that it is the habit of the county to often have a pot of money at the end of the year called a closeout fees that they often throw into various programs. And there's often a mad scramble to figure out which programs those are going to be. And some of those monies find their way back into to support some of these selected programs. So sometimes the budget isn't as bad as it initially looks, depends on what areas get prioritization. But there is often a pot of money at the end in closeout funds that can be thrown back into selected programs.
well, we happen to know that there was a pot of money that initially the county manager suggested go towards the purchase of parkland. And then the county board took it back and said, no, we don't want to use earmark it for parkland purchases. So it is there. I forgot how much it is. You remember?
No, but it was a misstep for sure.
Yeah, it was a couple million.
It would have been a good faith show to the preaching that has been done on this issue for many years.
But it is highly competitive, and every organization, every county department is well aware of this, and they're all putting in tips for it. Because they're all gonna see some pain, and this is a way of ameliorating the pain.
And at the end of the day, we're not gonna fight the fact that all this is done in closed doors. We've talked about that ad nauseam.
You mean purchasing parkland?
Purchasing parkland, this decision to not put the acquisition towards it, a lot of it is done behind closed session. So we've got to find another way to fight it. All right, yeah.
Just, and to everything I say with a grain of salt, because I've moved, I don't work there anymore, but, my liaisons and we can have, but, something I think worth considering, like in hearing this conversation, there seem to be a lot of intersecting issues, like you're talking about decreasing programming, or like the budget cuts mean programming is decreasing, and that has impacts from an equity perspective and cuts across different communities, rather than, you know, sharing letter notes behind closed doors, like maybe a co-signed letter with a variety of organizations, like not just commissions, but community organizations as well.
Yeah.
That like is written and signed by all of the organizations together, and maybe they all send it in separately, but like that might kind of emphasize the magnitude of like, this isn't just about perks. This is about equity and climate justice and public health and schools and children and all of that. Just something to consider.
And I think a lot of us hold hands with organizations
Right.
that we untap. We don't have tapped right now. This is a great moment.
If you're already meeting with NAACP and other folks are already meeting with
And
Armin
VCT
and like
can
all of
speak to
these
conservation,
organizations.
acquisition.
Okay, I'm gonna send around a note.
Yeah.
Everybody write down all their notes.
Yeah, no, who are you affiliated with? We gotta know. We have to know.
That's a good idea. You taking notes? Okay.
This is on the records.
The financial disclosure, who do you know?
So, all right. So I guess, you know, the bottom line is, if you feel like it, if you want to be a super nerd, tune in on Saturday to the county board manager's presentation to the board. to see what he says about the budget, and then I'll be getting my briefing on Monday along with the other forestry and natural resources chair and the sports chair. And I guess I'll be allowed to share that, whatever.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Well, it'll be on the county website.
Right.
Okay, so I'll send out a reminder on Monday.
But I would say also if we could get your notes from your Jane
Yeah,
conversation.
I think I'll send out a note on Monday with the notes and a reminder. And then that's a way of saying, get ready for our meeting in March, where we will get our presentation. We'll ask Jane questions. And also feel free to shoot me questions on email, because I can. Any more discussion on that? You guys are quiet today. Okay.
This item was actually a good segue to the next topic, actually.
The next item is, what are we gonna do in the sports commission joint meeting? And Shruti was good enough to go to a planning meeting with the chair of the sports commission, and she's gonna take.
Yes, okay, so I proposed a few topics to them as well. I'm just gonna say that, like, we run this meeting more or less, like, we come with an agenda. So that is what has happened, and we got a yes on that. So that, I'm saying this to you, but because we run the agenda, please let me know if you have additions or changes. We will obviously communicate them. So the first thing that we definitely want to talk about is the athletic field availability project, which we got a briefing up on. And so we want to have a staff. Actually, they did not get the same briefing that we did. That's what we learned.
They're getting it on Thursday.
Yes, and so it'll be fresh for them. Like the fact that we got it before them, okay, but yeah, whatever. But we're gonna have a discussion about it because we haven't had an opportunity in a joint fashion to talk about the results of that as they go into the study planning essentially. So that's fine. We'll have a nice discussion about that. So if you would like an action item on that, maybe you refamiliarize yourself so you're really good on it.
I'll
Also,
just say, like, one item that really came out of our discussion was the lack of I mean, integrity is the wrong word, but their survey methods seemed a little uninformative.
I've asked for DPR to provide me with the statistics by zip code because I had asked Greg and Celine for that at the last meeting and they haven't received it yet, so.
Yeah, that's the past, but I'm talking about what they're planning, which is you won't know who didn't get the field. So how are you gonna know how many, what the demand for the field was if you don't have like some way?
Yeah.
standardized utilization.
Yeah, I don't know what their plan is.
Well,
They had talked about using an app and having something like that, but there's no concrete.
Somewhere Greg will be there for us to,
Yeah, I know.
and yeah, we should definitely
Yes.
get it.
And I've done some informal canvassing on what they've currently proposed at some of the schools in the south of the.
And they haven't announced anything to the sports groups about what they're planning to do. They've even said that they're gonna be doing it. The only reason
We
people
know.
know is because I told them
Yeah.
about it. So that's kind of a scary thought that they're looking at doing something and they haven't even
Discuss the rubric. Right. Okay.
Well, what they're implementing is a way of assessing who's using the field. That's all they're.
I don't even know if it's gonna even do that. I'm not convinced, but what they're planning to do is actually gonna provide the data that they're expecting.
Well, that's my concern. I mean, anyway, okay, let's go back.
So this will be our fodder on that discussion item, which I do think is our most important discussion item.
Okay.
Next is the function of both of our commissions, so we can understand deeper what the intersection points are and what the outlaying factors are. Because I don't think we work with them effectively at all. And we probably could do better on that to some extent. Like, how did they not know that we were getting this before them? Like, I think as if I was the chair of the sports commission, I'd be livid, right? But like, you don't know if you don't know. So we meet with our other DPR folks very effectively through that Energize Commission. We do not know anything about sports. So we learn it through many of you guys. So, which is great. We're doing great on that.
Yeah, thank you for the liaison.
But it's not enough. It's not enough at this point. Yeah.
Do you guys report to them while we do?
What's that? No, they're supposed to have a liaison that comes here from their group, but I don't know who it is now.
But that person.
It's actually me.
They used to come.
Hello.
Hello?
Hi, this is Lizzie Stell. I'm
Hi.
actually I'm on the sports commission, and I've been listening to your calls for the last 4 months.
Awesome.
Oh, hello.
So, anyway, I think this is interesting what you guys are talking about. And I did see that presentation last call that Greg did. So I guess I'll get to see it again on Thursday.
Awesome.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'm sorry, what was your name?
Lizzie, Lizzy, Lizzie Stell.
Awesome. Looking forward to seeing you in person next month.
That's right. That's right. When we have our joint meeting, correct.
Okay, so
Great, thank you, Lizzie.
we will continue to have that conversation together. Yeah.
Can I add an agenda item for the sports?
Yeah.
session? Ball recycling.
Okay, it's already on the agenda. Let me keep going. Let me keep going. Let me keep going. Item
I thought
number
you said
three. I know you're good. You're good. Item number three. Sports Commission Chair John Mingus is going to be leading this discussion on the Arlington 2050 project, which he brought up as part of this. And we had not got a briefing on this in my recollection. He said that there are implications for us and for our sports commission on advocating for demand of parks and recreation facilities. And that definitely falls more within our purview than theirs. And so, yes, we need a briefing on it in the future, but let's learn what they've already learned. Let's see what he
Well,
has.
I went to that. Nobody else here went to that. Everybody could have gone. But the only thing I saw that was, well, and it's an important thing, is the intersection of getting ready for climate resiliency. And using those open spaces as in Louisiana, we used to call them spillways. So, you have these big sort of areas of land that can accept water, but when they're not wet, you can use them for fields.
Blue-green infrastructure.
Okay, is that the new name? Okay.
Love it.
Okay, so, anyway, things along that line
Cool. Okay.
are being thought about.
Yeah.
But that's a very nebulous process that's gonna.
I don't know. He's
At the
supposed
end
to.
of the year, it's gonna yield 3 options for
Yeah.
the county to then decide which one they want to try to pursue to achieve in 2050.
Yeah, man. Maybe we just say 20 minutes on that one. So we'll go through the form and function of this meeting a little bit, which will kind of inform the discussion that we have at these tables.
I mean, it was an exciting time to think about all that stuff.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know. He wanted to lead it, so
Okay, good.
we're doing the other one. Sorry. Okay. Then last one, ball recycling program. John actually says that they've made some headway and it's not good news. They went to the tennis community and told them the idea.
Yeah.
And he has some details, reasonings why they do not want to take it on. I actually don't know what they are. He's gonna.
The idea, you wanted to restate your idea?
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
sorry.
there's some companies that do tennis ball recycling because you can't just throw a tennis ball in your average recycling bin. Like it's a process. So it was suggested that perhaps there could be some way of either the county funds the ball recycling boxes, or the tennis clubs do, or some organization supports, there's a word for this, funds, fundraises for the boxes to recycle these, and pickleball's a thing now. So I think those also need recycling in a different way.
Yeah, I perhaps, Melissa, we propose perhaps at the next meeting that we look for a low-cost alternative to, I don't really know what the tennis community is doing or why they can't do it. But let's say maybe an action we can ask for is the tennis page on DPR's website, where you go to sign up for courts or whatever, has a link to one of these aggregators or a few of them that would be easy to host on that page, right? Like, at bare minimum, we can control that, even if the tennis community does not want to be involved, right? Perhaps you propose that at next meeting.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Okay, yeah, if that's a thing we can do.
Also, are you willing to call DES and see? Might think about this.
This is the thing. Yeah, they have an initiative. Anyways,
They might.
this is on the agenda, Melissa.
Oh, so should I make any headway on that or should I wait?
Go for it.
I am.
Okay,
Make
yeah.
as much headway as you can.
And come with data and come with an agenda.
Okay,
Yeah,
Well, I mean, you can't make any decisions, but you can get some
I just-
information.
yeah. Thank you.
Okay, yes.
Yeah, okay, cool, awesome.
Jill is imparting you with unilateral.
What else you got?
I give you all the authority I have.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
cool. So those are the, yeah,
I'd like to add, propose another
Yes.
item. I don't know if there's gonna be room, because it's also the budget discussion, which is not on here.
Oh, so these are follow-up
Additional.
items, additional
These are
items.
that we are,
Related.
the main subject
Right.
is going to be the budget.
Got it, okay.
Yeah.
So, the item I wanted to bring up is basically the relationship between DPR and schools.
Oh. good.
Great.
Okay.
Excellent. Maybe we have that as a sub item to the function of PRC and DPR, separate mutual interests. We also talk about schools. We talk about DES as well, perhaps. So go ahead. Adam.
Yeah, so in particular, there's been a couple of incidents lately where there's been real screw ups in terms of communication. One big one was that we had a big storm and the schools closed for the entire weekend.
Recently, in the
Is-
last month or so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they reversed their decision because they realized it was actually a mistake. They only meant to close on Saturday. So schools, they announced that they were open on Sundays, but none of the programs could use the gyms because the genders didn't show up to open the schools up. And so there's a lot of like dysfunctional communication going on here where they're, announcing, incorrectly. They're also, I mean, the quickness at which they are closing facilities and schools, not schools, also DPR facilities, based on forecasts and not based on reality. Now, I understand that school days, this goes on a lot of things we need to think about, but for weekends, you don't have all these logistics to worry about. The individual groups, are the ones that are, need to take care of obviously communicating with their community. And it's caused, a lot of kids not to be able to have their recreational activity on the weekends because of this. And then another area that I wanted to talk about and bring up is the memorandum of understandings between high schools, between the DPR and the high schools and the colleges about use of the fields. They state that the high schools and the Marymount and GW, who have joint control of certain fields, like Marymount has Longbridge 1 is their soccer and lacrosse field, and then GW has Barcroft 6 for the baseball team. And then O'Connell has Tuckahoe, one of the Tuckahoe Diamonds for their softball team. And the DPR has a memorandum of understanding, which I've never seen, but that control the use and scheduling of those facilities. And they're supposed to have priority over it. But what in reality, what they have is a veto power. So that sometimes often DPR will give a permit to the user group for one of those fields, but then they'll announce a week before, or maybe not even a week before, maybe the day of, that, now high school is going to be using that field, so you've got to cancel all your activities. And I understand why they need priority, and we need to account for situations like game rainouts and that kind of thing. But the schools should not be able to come in after the fact, after they've announced what their schedule is, what they're doing, and be able to take away permits from groups that have permit to a field. And I want that to be, I want to hear from them what they're going to do to address that issue.
Sports commission.
I want to just kind of chime in on this. I do think that, I mean, I've been working for Arlington Soccer for over 15 years. And
Susie, can you speak up a little bit? It's really hard to hear you.
Sure. I've worked for Arlington Soccer for about 15 years, and it's always kind of been this way, where the schools can bump us from the field. But normally it is just for, like, you know, they've made the playoff games or there was a rain out. But I do think that there has been, and I don't know why, but I do feel like there has been less information or correct information coming from the schools to the county. It's not timely, because we're having, you know, similar situations where, you know, we've had something for, you know, a regular field time for years, and all of a sudden it's like being swapped and we're not being notified, and it'll be very intermittent. So I'm experiencing that as well. And I you know, I don't really know why it's happening, other than I'm thinking the school is late giving the information, and then by the time it's, you know, discovered, you know, or you know, somebody at the county is not relaying the information timely. So I do think, I mean, it sounds like you're experiencing similar things. Is this with baseball?
Baseball and ultimate frisbee.
And ultimate, okay. So it's been happening. I mean, I there definitely have been a lot of just in the last couple of years where it's been the communication has not been as good. You know, notification about changes, and you know, sometimes I find something online because the calendar is online, and I'll see all of a sudden, because I'm actually cross-checking against that calendar, and I'll find a field time change that we weren't notified about.
Right.
So, yeah.
Your point is exactly what I mean is there's, the communication is terrible. There's no, and whenever I challenge Greg Anseline about this, he always says, "Oh, we tried. We asked them to tell us." I'm like, this shouldn't be something that you have to beg and ask them to do. It should be standard operating procedure. There should be a communication regime in place that makes sure that this information is communicated you know, effectively and quickly to those who need to know. Because you know, groups are showing up, you know, and then they're finding that they can't use the field. And at that point, it's really hard to find that, you know, maybe, like, sometimes I've actually called the duty officer and said, "Hey, is there another field available?" And maybe they find one. But by the time that all comes back and gets to the group is like, "Oh, you know, they're gone. They've given up on it," and it's really dysfunctional. So,
well, I'll raise it on our end as well. You know, with the sports commission, and maybe also just, you know, if hearing that you all are having similar issues, and it's much worse now than it has ever been in, you know, the time that I've been working with fields. So.
Good, thank you, Lizzie. While we've got your attention, can you shed any light on the tennis recycling thing?
You know, I remember hearing a little bit about that a while ago, but it hasn't been brought up in any more recent meetings. So you might have more information than I do about that.
Okay, I just thought I'd ask. Okay, thanks.
I think it was discussed at the January meeting, and John Mingus had been specifically looking also at opportunities. Apparently Arlington Soccer has a huge supply of unusable soccer balls that they'd like to recycle. And they were hoping to go this route of maybe if the tennis balls can be recycled, then old soccer balls could be recycled too, but he hasn't had much luck finding solution to that problem.
So let's keep discussing it. That's great.
Yeah, so we commissions want it, but okay, that's good. Okay,
That's great.
Good
No,
call.
definitely mutual interest. Yeah. Okay, great. Those 2 items are added. I will talk to John. We will talk to John about that at our next meeting. I just want to also, you can see all these agenda items besides the 2 that you've just mentioned. There's like relationship between DPR and APS, and separately the relationship between DPR and our high school and college facilities locally. And how does that prioritization process work? How do we make sure that miscommunications aren't happening on the APS side, leading to lower utilization and more hassle on our side? I'd love in that discussion to hear more about what they do to ameliorate it at this point. Are they offering you like priority and rebooking or anything? No.
Well, at that point, it doesn't really matter because it's too late for us to do anything.
For 90 parents to have to like figure out a new time. Okay, cool. All right, love it. I will talk about that. The form and function of this meeting. We're gonna be meeting, if you were here last year, oh, sorry, go ahead. You go first.
I just want to bring this up because it's been a major topic at the Sports Commission for a while. And I served on the Combating Hate in Sports Working Group. So I don't know if this commission wants to at least get a briefing on what is going on there.
Let's do it.
It's been an ongoing.
Combating, and is there anyone on the Sports Commission side who's also on this?
I
commission?
was on the initial working group was chartered 2021.
And there's no Sports Commission member who's on it. Just
Yes, no, there were sports, it was members from all the, and I know I can pull up the original charter, but I was the member from the PRC, and then there were members from the Sports Commission, and there were members from some of the other commissions that were related to this. And it all grew out of the incident that happened between the football teams at Wakefield High School when they played Marshall High School.
Right.
And so the working group spent about a year putting together a lot of research and documentation and provided that to the Sports Commission. And it's been a topic for the Sports Commission for a while. And it's on their agenda again on Thursday. So I don't know if it's something that this commission would like to at least get some information about. Because I worked on the original working group. I know a lot about it, but
so this kind of segues well into the next. So the form and function of this meeting. We will be meeting in a different space, the Sports Commission space. We will be meeting earlier at 6 p.m. This is mostly 6:30, mostly to accommodate that. We have a hard stop at 9 p.m. for the staff working at this facility. We want to be respectful of that, obviously. And so with the small group designation, we're going to really encourage you all to limit yourself to half the table. We believe there are tables of 6. So half the table should be Parks people, half the table should be Sports Commission people. Also try and vary some of our interests. You know, if you're a sports person, like please sit at different tables, don't sit together. And I think we may have to discuss this at our joint meeting with John Mingus, that there are a lot of other business topics, and the briefing from Jane will be long too. So we may want to perhaps have many of these discussions at our small table, as opposed to with the whole group, to keep ourselves timely while getting all of these thoughts out, and then like set time limit, report out action items from each table, note take, move on to the next topic with your small group. So if we're mindful about how we sit, that will be an effective way of discussing, if you guys feel okay with that. Yeah.
Can you repeat the date of the?
So the meeting will be on Tuesday, March 19th. We're securing the Lever Run Community Center's multi-purpose room space where we met last year. But again, it will be at 6:30. It'll be a hybrid meeting, so we'll have both the virtual feed and we'll be meeting in person.
6:30, and we'll say this at the end of the meeting too.
Yeah, the agenda noted it incorrectly at the end. It said 7 p.m., but it should say 6:30.
And if you guys remember, this is that place where you like, remember there's like the pickleball court on top. You gotta park kind of on the street or in that lot area, garage area. I had confusion last time, that's why I'm saying it. We will have public comment.
Yes, public comment. The only difference with this meeting is we will not be acting on any separate business with the PRC. And we won't be reporting out on any sort of commission member reports or staff reports or anything like that.
Also, we will be doing an icebreaker of what is your favorite park or recreational facility. We did this last year too. Heads up. You'll be sharing that with your small group table as well.
So Mark, are you suggesting that you would give the combating hate briefing yourself? Or are you suggesting that we would get it at the joint?
At the meeting, by somebody, since it's a sports commission chartered working group. I think the sports commission should brief
Run it.
us on the progress of the.
I realize we may not have the time for this, but is it possible to give us a 2 to 3 minute, just really brief overview about what this is about, what the high points of it?
2 minutes ago.
Or is this just?
No, I can, so, it was initiated because of an incident that happened between Wakefield High School and Marshall High School at Marshall High School in a football game. There were some bad things that happened in that game. Apparently the officials on the field did not either notice or take note of it or whatever, but I don't know if they even completed the game, but it was a bad situation. It went back to both Fairfax County Public Schools and Arlington Public Schools to resolve the situation, and VHSL got involved as well, which is the state group that runs sports in the state of Virginia. The Sports Commission was encouraged by the board, the county board, to stand up a working group that would look at the situation and try to come up with some means of educating, training, prevention, a lot of different things. And so that group was stood up, I believe it was June 2021 when we had our first meeting. And Bill Ross nominated me from the PRC to sit on that working group. And we delivered our final report with all of our recommendations and findings and so forth to the Sports Commission June of 2022. It was, we had a couple of different leaders. There was some change of people, but it was a very productive group. The first thing we did was we separated every organization we could think of at the first meeting, professional, collegiate, interscholastic, amateur, and everybody did research on the organizations that they either selected or were assigned, and came back to the group with, how does this organization handle this problem? What do they do from an educational standpoint, training, coaching, with the players that are involved, the athletes and so forth. And we spent a lot of time studying what was going on all over the world. Some organizations do a lot. Some of the most forward thinking are FIFA, which is the organization that runs soccer in the world, the NHL, which kind of surprised us, and USTA, the United States Tennis Association. And we took all of that information and distilled it down into a set of documents and recommendations to give out as an implementation plan to the leagues that do youth sports in Arlington. And that's kind of where it stands at this point. There's after the information was delivered to the Sports Commission, it's been sort of churning there, and so I don't know what the plan is, and that's why I think it would be beneficial to. I go to the Sports Commission meetings every month, but I think it would be beneficial for us to hear as a group what they're going to do
Beyond.
beyond what we've done, what the working group did.
Good, thank you. Good question. Good.
Love it. Thank you,
We
Mark.
went over, we went over by 1 minute.
No, thank you though. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
Okay.
that was
These items have been noted. We will talk to the sports commission. Great.
awesome. Thank you, Trudy. Well done. Okay, next up is the staff report.
No additional items related to what was sent out earlier. We had talked about the logistics related to the Sports Commission, so.
Okay. We have mission, and thank you for doing the report.
Sure.
Any discussion? Next, we have commission member reports. Thank you to Alex and Nelson for those detailed activities. Are there any questions? There was a suggestion, Nelson, that we bring your very good topic into the, your very good summary into the discussion down below on site plan review. So
yeah,
put a pin in that, come back to that. And then do you want to talk about the red line and why it's yellow?
Oh, yes. So on the agenda, we're under the commission member reports where it speaks to the red line. And this is something that I'll start to do for every meeting's agenda is when there is a site plan or project or initiative that has concluded, I'll note it so that way we can update our agendas accordingly to let folks know that it's been acted on and we can update our lists as we need to.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody have any questions about their assignments on these different projects? Okay, so we're back. Oh, we're back to being early. You could take another 5 minutes more time. So now we're on other business. We have 5 items here. So I'm gonna rush through the first one.
Ignore that note. We all are gonna be responsible for this budget letter, in my opinion. We'll have a
So,
large.
yeah, everybody
large
feels
percentage.
free to comment. Yeah.
But we wanted to encourage you that we will definitely be writing and helping write it, so.
Yeah, don't worry about having to take a heavy lift.
Yeah.
But we definitely are counting on everybody to come up with their items of concern. I've already signed up I had to sign up to speak. So I went ahead and did that. I think that's in April. So I think we have at least the sports commission meeting, and then I think we have to have the letter ready by that April time, which I think is before our next meeting or April meeting. So we're really,
Yes.
I'm just trying to say, we're not gonna have time to be all together. So you're gonna have to work on your own and come up with your issues and email them in. The way the rules are, we're not allowed to have a committee. We can only do 2 at a time. So you're just gonna have to send them
Just
in.
got 10 committees of one.
So
So,
you could have 5 committees of 2 if we wanted, but anyway, what were you saying?
no, sorry, so the natural surface trail study, have writers and editors for that maybe established today as opposed to waiting until April because we won't.
Oh, that's actually a separate item. That shouldn't be on the letters to the county board.
It's not,
Oh, okay.
but we will be writing a letter in April, right?
Yeah, but probably not on the trails yet.
Not on is the
Maybe.
study adopted by the board? already?
No, there's actually an engagement that's ongoing right now.
Okay, so no,
I
I think they're just information gathering.
okay, thank you. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I was confused.
Yeah,
too
my
until
bad.
I actually went and did it. So I'm gonna summarize what that is.
Okay, lovely.
Okay,
thank
it
you,
is
sorry.
that the county has already bought and paid for an assessment of the trails in Arlington. And this has never been done before. And so then you go on and you're like, well, what am I gonna say about it? Because there's 10 pages, this size type of, information. But then when you click on the comments area where you're supposed to give your comments, they ask you some pretty general questions. So it's really what they want from the public is things like, do you know of any secret trails that we haven't been down?
Okay.
Are you particularly worried and the bad guys are hanging? I mean, they didn't say it like this, but
Yeah.
and then
I took it.
so you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but I would encourage everybody, it's very simple. You know, it's an easy, just
It
an
has
easy
also,
uplift.
it has a mapping feature that I thought was smart, that had you identify the zones and areas that you most frequently use. I use Custis Trail as my dog walking backyard, and because I don't have a backyard. And so it was very nice to be able to localize some of my specific problems I'm seeing on my branch of the trail, which it allows you to do.
Yes, so I would encourage you to send to your networks before it's done.
I thought it was the 18th of February.
I thought it was 22nd.
It's the 22nd.
Okay, because the signs out there on the actual trail. See.
Maybe they printed them a little too early.
So
Okay.
you have another day. Alex, did you have anything you want to add?
No, I think it's, yeah, they're very much in an information gathering stage. There's no, I mean, obviously at some point, later this year, the county will, they haven't already started thinking about what to do with this. And it seems like there are a few different options. And I think that will certainly be a time in which this commission should be opining with its view of what the county should be doing with this excellent amount of information that they have now. And I assume we'll be talking about it more over the next few months. But it seems to me that they'll be determining, whether they do no action or basically what they do now, which is kind of spasmodic action. Determined county action. Would they hire a contractor? Probably be the same outfit that did the assessment. Or they use some sort of volunteer organization, which there is one in Northern Virginia that maintains hundreds of miles of trails in the Mid-Atlantic area, mostly on federal land.
That is the
Potomac Appalachian Trail Club. So those are all potential options for the county. And I assume at some point, once they've collected as much information as they want, they will start putting that together and putting that out for just like us to offer our views on.
I mean, I anticipate one of the issues that I will have is the impact of erosion on trail maintenance and trail placement, and how that integrates with DES's plans, for different stormwater retention and erosion and things like that. Because that's what was uncovered, is that a lot of the trails are too close, or they don't have integrity because they're at risk of erosion or other infrastructure is needed.
Yeah. I mean, the vast majority of the trails within the county were never built as hiking trails. They've been created over time by users, and so they're there and they're delineated, and people are using them, but no one ever planned them out. So they're often in poor places. They're often eroding because they weren't built; they were just created by foot traffic, or they're in places where they're very vulnerable to erosion. They're causing problems with ecological habitats. Some places there's a lot of stream crossings, like in Donaldson Run, which have all kinds of problems, constantly creating trails to avoid muddy areas. So there's a lot of room for improvement, I think. But there's also going to be a lot of controversy, because if you just flip through the document really quickly and look at some of the recommendations that the contractor made, there's a lot of recommendations for closing trails. There's a lot of trails that are completely unsustainable, and that's not popular.
Yeah. So, yeah. So we may have to take a stand in favor of the county, maybe a popular stand, but it would be a good one. Anyway,
And Jill, just one thing too, I'm sharing our screen
Oh,
as well,
thank you.
just so
Yeah.
that folks can understand on the call as well as here in the room, where to access that study, I guess, link. So, you go to the Parks Projects, it'll be under the Arlington's Natural Surface Trail Study. The announcement, which is within this green box, states that it'll be remaining open until February 22nd. If you click on the link, it should take you to the engagement form. From there, you can start that process.
And there are 2 little videos that are, kind of. Thank you. Okay, so we kind of jumped right into that. Is there anything more on either the budget or the national? The next thing, thing I've been talking about for 6 months at least.
I'm excited.
So I sent this out today, draft. It's 1.5 pages long, which is longer than maybe it should be. But I hope everybody's had a chance to at least look at this. I also sent out the comparison document. This kind of spiffy looking but intimidating thing that the D2E2 does. And I started looking at their, see, it goes on for 5 pages. And then they come up with a percentage. And then they have an overall score. That's another page on the, this project was 87%. Okay, so that's their. I started looking at that and going, how am I going to know if it's 75, 25, 15, with it, whatever? And I just started listing the questions, and that's why it came out as a checklist. And I showed it to Shruti, and she thought that was okay, and other people thought that was okay. So I'm interested in that. I think this would be useful, and if so, my intention with this is both to help us, but also to be able to share it with the development community so that they will know what we're looking for when we go in. I had, and then I'm gonna cover the waterfront, and then we can come back and discuss. I had a nice discussion with Carolyn Haynes, and she said that one of the things their commission does is at the beginning of an assignment, they actually get together and write up and send to the chair of that particular project. You know, the planning commission has one person chair each project, what the forestry commission's concerns are. And I think that's a nice exercise for everybody. And another thing that they do is they have a working group of people who do site plans, and they get together periodically with Vincent. How do you say his last name?
Verway.
Verway, who is the Arlington County forestry person and the staff liaison to the forestry commission. And then also Gary Shinners is the liaison to the forestry commission. And he has gotten together with Carolyn and devised a plan for the forestry commission and the Parks and Rec commission people who are assigned to the different sites to work together and to know each other and to have a commonality of interest, at least to know what they are and maybe. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to the beginning and we can discuss all those things.
Before you go forward, can you explain how that's going to work? Or how that...
So there's a lot of overlap between what we look at and what the folks on the Forestry Commission look at. And I've had, I guess, 2 sites where I was matched up with someone on the Forestry Commission. It was extremely helpful, to me at least, to actually go to the site with that individual and share thoughts about, you know, what we see going on and what we see as problems and things of that sort. So my thought was, it would be great if all of us knew who our counterparts were on that other commission that really is looking at many of the same things. It's not a complete overlap, but there's a lot of overlap. And so it would be a great opportunity for us to work together, to collaborate to an extent, and also be aware of any letters that a commission might be writing on any of these projects and letting our counterparts on the Forestry Commission know about what that letter at least the draft of it is going to be pointing out to see if they would want to join it, or if they have a differing opinion on it, and if so, find out why. Those kinds of things. So that's sort of what my
I think
thinking is on that.
It's a great idea. What I'm also wondering is how is that going to be operationalized? Who's going to be responsible for connecting those people to make sure that that actually occurs?
Suppose it might be me.
Volunteer.
And I think at minimum, I think it's a great opportunity to know that person's name at the PRCs to be like, and I agree with Commissioner blah, 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 that this, then if your project also makes it to the county board approval, if you are tasked with writing that letter, which you probably will be, you will have someone to work off with your talking points for. So at minimum, it's that. At maximum, it's someone to really develop a comedic routine at SPRCs with, like to have like someone that you can really work off of.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I guess it's something any of us could do at any time by ourselves if we took the trouble. I mean, it's all public information, but it's not always timely given, or you don't think of doing it or something.
Why don't we try as like a first round, doing it as like an as asked way, reach out to Gary when you are on the SPRC. That is an upcoming meeting. We can figure out who those people are. Easily put everyone on an email chain. As a
Yeah.
party.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Make it low for you too, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you for that, Gary.
Yeah.
So, and then I wanted to also give Nelson an opportunity to tell us what land use analysis means. So Nelson and I had a conversation and he asked me, what is that? And I'm like, I'm not sure. And so he did self study and made a really nice document for himself. He shared the whole thing with me. We've shared the last part with you on the back report or the agenda now. But do you want to give us a little background? Because I think that's really helpful.
Yeah, so I'm on the Barcroft Apartments land use analysis, which is a pretty large community of largely affordable housing along Columbia Pike near 4 Mile Run. And so this process, there was a big auction that happened for the property, and it was bought by a developer that has committed to expanding the number of units there while preserving the housing. And in that process, they got a large loan from the county and a large loan from Amazon to develop this space. And so that was closed in 2021. Financing was finalized at the end of 2023. And now as they look to the next phase of the process to building out and renovating a lot of the property, they're revisiting. It's similar to the site planning process, but it's different and it's unique to Columbia Pike. There's these form-based codes that were put into place as part of the revitalization plan. And so what those are, they're similar to the site planning process, but slightly different. And that's going to guide sort of the discussion here on forward and revisiting a lot of the land use things that are happening at the site going into the next. It's going to be a very long process, probably decades to build out this vision. But it's just starting now to revisit, what are they looking at across a lot of the dimensions?
You didn't know what you were saying.
That's cool.
Yeah.
You'll be middle-aged by the time you
It's
get
60,
done.
yeah, it's 60 acres. It's 1,300 units now. They're going to double it to 2,600 units. And yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a great synopsis. Yeah, so it's interesting if you look at the items that you noted. They're very similar to the items on the list that I put together too.
And I think that that's actually, so I think the way to take a look at this checklist is going to be to use it. So perhaps everyone just download it onto your phone, or if you have a printer at home and feel obliged to, go ahead and print it out and have it for your next SPRC, because I think let's use the checklist in this kind of form and fashion where we're kind of all experts at small things. Let's try and see it, maybe come back to the group with criticisms and other business of the checklist as we're going forward, because we want this to be something that actually works for a new member who has no idea what they're talking about, you can literally just say these words at an SPRC. If they are in the public meeting minutes, we're doing a good service to our community, aren't we?
Sure, that's a good point.
So we should use it.
Sarah?
Yeah, I can send some notes via email, but maybe another category to build out is how the site interacts with the area around it.
Okay.
Including alignment with a sector plan or general land use plan if applicable. Come up a lot in the SPRCs down in Clarendon is how the site plans are or aren't aligning with the vision that was laid out during the sector planning process a few years ago. Noting Silver Diner site deviated substantially from the sector plan, and that was like all of the discussion at SPRC was about that change from the sector plan. So that's I think for people doing this for the first time, the easiest place to start, I think, is like, oh, well, does this neighborhood have a sector plan? What does the sector plan say for this block? Because sector plans always look at big SPRC blocks. And does what they're proposing line up with the sector plan? Doesn't? That's like a good place to start. Why doesn't it? Do I like these changes or do I not like these changes?
Okay, okay.
I think another area to add in is what is the existing state of the site? So how many acres of green space are made available? It would be nice to know how many acres of green space exist on the site before the project, so that you have some benchmark here. Is this a highly urban site where you're talking about fragments, or is this of anything, or are we talking about something that has greater potential? That matters a lot in terms of how useful that is. Recreational needs. What are the recreational facilities at the site now? Just a starting point.
Okay, okay. Anyway, keep these ideas flowing as you use it. And I'll update it based on these comments and whatever you say.
Yeah, I'll send some more stuff.
Could
Yeah.
we make this a
A Google Doc.
a document so that we all have access to the latest version?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Suggest changes, stuff like that.
Great.
Love it.
Yeah.
Did Carolyn share with you her biophilic checklist?
I think so.
I
Okay.
think we have it
Do I have
here in your email somewhere. Long time ago.
it?
I may shoot her an email, just to ask her.
Yeah, for latest,
to-
yeah.
I can Forward that.
Oh, okay.
It's similar, but it's more of like a laundry list by categories of biophilic activities, so you have something to point to. So it could be a page 2 of the rubric, honestly, where you have inquiring topics as part of the rubric, and you have a list of solutions as part of the biophilic.
Oh, that's what hers is?
Yeah, it's
Oh.
like a list of solutions. It's biophilic tidbits to add to text.
Okay.
But probably a good, like, biophilia is really vague, right? And less vague than county now. There's those pages in the FNRP that define what biophilia means for Arlington County, which I'm personally very excited about because that didn't exist before and we were just making things up on the fly and developers could say whatever they wanted. I'm like, oh, this is biophilic, because that county didn't have a standard, but now that FNRP on and says this is how the county defines biophilia. But I think for folks who are like new to that topic, having a list of like concrete examples of the different ways biophilia can manifest, because it's not just having water features and winding paths, but also like smells and sounds and colors are also really important. And so I'm sure, I haven't seen the checklist, but I'm sure it kind of walks
maybe
through the whole universe.
If we could put both into Google Doc. Like, send that out and use that compendium as SPRC modern friends for this year. Okay. Cool.
Great. Any more comments? No, thank you guys for listening to me moan and groan, and finally in 10 minutes I wrote all of them.
I think like one difference between this and what the C2E2 has is they have like specific, like a lot of these are like specific numbers they're looking for.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily have
I know.
that.
Well, we have tree canopy cover percentage,
Okay,
but that's
But-
about the only one that's quantifiable.
so I think that's what makes it hard to look at it as like a corporate percentage. But I think it would be good for us to establish, some kind of a standard for what the answer should be. So we can determine whether or not, like, for example, does the project have a playground? In different contexts, that might not be important, or it might be. So maybe if there's and I keep thinking of these like interactive ways of doing it, where based on your answer to one question, you get other questions.
Well, I think it's, not to interrupt,
Yeah.
but I wanna, maybe, what's the intent, right? To me, in this phase at least, I love that as like a final goal,
Yeah.
but like in this phase, I think our intent is mostly that. Because when you get into an SPRC and the recommendation ends up being something so drastically different from the site plan, from what is recommended, from what you would logically think would be what you would do with that land. When you are in that environment and then you get to the parks meeting, you have nothing to say that would be an improvement. It feels like everything's set in stone. To me, in this phase, this checklist rubric plus biophilic elements would be a way to start talking about the conversation where you have an ability to butt in and educate the developer on what these things are. And maybe the V2 of this project in a year even could be that checklist, so that at the end of that public resource, what do they call it? The public land meeting of the SPRC, when they talk about.
Oh, that second meeting.
Yeah, whatever the meeting.
Public spaces.
Public spaces meeting, you could be like, and on our unofficial PRC rubric, you guys rated 4 out of 5,000, and have that metric so that it's consistent. I feel like right now we're still in that education phase where we've defined what biophilic is, but the developer isn't gonna care that they're hitting such a low percentage on our list, even if we had that, because they're not educated on what is needed at this point.
So I can't see us
But I like-
asking all these questions.
No,
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 you
that's
ask
the thing.
yourself these questions and
Right.
pick out the ones that don't have. the right
it's a
answer.
compendium of
Bring up.
all the options that we could have for any given site. So then you look at your particular property that you're working on in SPRC, and you say, I have no idea what to say in this public lands meeting. This is your list of possibilities, so that maybe in a year, we don't have to do this anymore because the developers already know. You know,
Or even
they're the same guys.
revive our March 2022 letter to the board asking for changes to section bumpity bump, what was it? Section
Yeah,
10 or 7, I forgot what the number. But we had a list of 7 changes that we wanted to the site plan, the standard site plan conditions. And if we could say, this group has worked on this for a year, and these are the things,
But we would like
we could-
add it.
we could revive that letter and say, we still aren't getting what we wanted. And this is the supplement that we're asking. It's just a thought.
I like it.
One thing I'm noticing too with a lot of these site plan projects and pages, I'm just looking at one right now, is there's an initial online engagement opportunity that is done prior to the formal meetings. So that might be an opportunity to provide those initial comments at that point too. So that way there is focusing the discussion when there is time to speak about public spaces, just as there would be for folks that want to speak about transportation related issues, things like that.
And I've seen developers be responsive. All the comments, here's some ways we're addressing these comments, whether they've actually made changes, hard to say, but they've like tried to make that connection. So I second that. I think that's a vastly underused tool by the commissions to provide feedback. Dave Howell always submits.
Of course.
David's always on top of things. I don't know anyone else who regularly submits to those besides David.
Okay.
I was trying to get into them. I think I've seen your comments on them
Yeah.
sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
As well. But I think those are a good way to start like raising these topics as early in the process as possible.
This might be a good area where for collaboration between the other similarly concerned commissions would come into play.
Totally.
Where instead of you just being one voice, you're one of at least 3.
Yep.
And something to note in those online feedback forms, if you are representative of the commission, you get to indicate that. So your comments are recorded differently as a commission member versus a citizen.
Even if you put it in on the website.
Yeah,
It's
it's kind
kind of
of that says, who are you? You get
Uh-huh.
to say like, I'm a commission
Okay.
So
You
that's
should.
another reason. Yeah, to emphasize that.
It's not just for a site that you're on, right? Like I could be talking
And
about,
it's, yeah.
you know, the metro system and still say, by the way, I'm commission member. So it is more.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, does it transfer?
Well, it's got like 3 bullets. You can click, I am a regular citizen, sorry, what do they call that? I am a staff member of Arlington County, or I am a commission volunteer,
Yeah.
something. And I hate that no matter what, because I am.
You should.
Yeah.
Okay, that's really good.
Yeah, you should always.
Um,
Yeah.
oh,
This is the power you wield.
yeah.
And the last thing about a recruitment is the
Yeah.
recruitment point is
Are we ready? I mean, does anybody have anything else they want to say about this? Okay,
thank you
Thank you.
for getting this started.
Okay. So thank you for, do you want to go to recruitment, go to Woodlawn Park?
But I was gonna say that there's a recruitment saying that if you volunteer to be a member, you're gonna have your say. Benefit of commissioning.
I do agree with that. Let's do Woodlawn
Let's do
Park
Woodlawn
first.
Park real.
Not quick, but
We
yeah.
don't, so. What's that going on over there?
Nothing.
Sure. So Woodlawn Park. On timing. Yeah. We, Beth Kaiser is our Bill Thomas board nominee, and she's getting screwed. I mean, what, you know, I had to like get involved.
No, I'm happy she's voting for Ted.
So
Yeah.
anyway, she's been working on that site for, I don't know, I would say maybe 10 years.
At least.
And now they're thinking about digging it all up. In my view, this gets back to the same issue that we have with the Gulf Branch project, which is there is not good collaboration between DPR and DES. I even mentioned to Jane Rudolph in my introductory meeting, and she suggested that if we got we got DES here, Department of Environmental Services, that she would want somebody from DPR to come as well. So I've asked Marco, and we're going to see if we can get them both here on April. But
Could we invite Beth to come back to that meeting as well?
are we allowed to do?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think she should speak again.
You mean as a public comment?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, once it's advertised as an agenda item, she certainly.
Well, she can speak as a public comment because she's.
No, but
Oh,
I
no,
think she
yes.
should speak again as a public.
Okay. Yeah. Well, if we get them, you know, who knows if it will. But my issue, and I've discussed this some of our walks, is the idea of elevating the value of the natural resources in our parks so that DES will give us a coherent and calculated understanding of when it is and is not actually the best cost benefit to do things like dig up a whole park to put a vault in. This issue is not going away. We are going to have, as climate change intensifies, a lot more conflicts with neighbor against neighbor, water against tree. I mean, but we have to have some rational way, in my view, a rational and defensible way of making the decision of what to sacrifice. You know, and if we end up having to sacrifice the park, I want to be able to say, and I would think the county board will want to be able to say why and what the analysis showed. It shouldn't just be, well, it was the best place. And there weren't any trees.
Or the only
87
place.
trees
Yeah.
there.
Is this, I have to admit, I know nothing about this, but I do know something about that park. The park is really important to a soccer program that Arlington Soccer runs a program for mentally and physically disabled children. It's called Top Soccer. It's affiliated with US Soccer and US Youth Soccer. And they use that park as where they run their activities. And if they're gonna dig the whole thing up, that's kind of a problem.
What's the name again, Mark?
Called Top Soccer.
Top Soccer.
Arlington Soccer's been running it since 2002, but it's been around for a lot longer than that. But So for the last 22 years, it's basically been spring, summer, and fall. They run activities there, and the Top Soccer is a year-round program for the most part. And they run winter activities at Gunston in the auxiliary gym. And so it's one of the things that they do, and because I coached in Arlington soccer in the high school program, they pick a team every week in the high school program at Arlington soccer to go play with the kids in Top Soccer. So 1 week in your season, you get to go play with this one of, this group of kids, and it's great. And, as everybody knows, I can be very critical of Arlington soccer, but this is one program that I think they've done a great job with. And to lose that park for, I would estimate it'd be a significant period of time would be not a good thing.
Well, and then the other issue is what's going on with the Cardinal Elementary School field over which the other vault is, so they put a vault when they were constructing Cardinal School, and now there's a field on top of it. Which is it okay?
Yeah.
I mean,
I think they've put the field back the way it was. The upper section used to be a small sided soccer field used for kindergarten through second grade games. And I'm not sure if it's being used right now because they put 2 drainage grates on the field and they've covered them with like permeable, artificial turf kind of rugs to make them safe for the kids to be around. But I've yet to see any kids actually playing soccer on that field, and that's that upper plateau on the edge of the hill.
I'm told it's wet.
Go. You've been told what about it?
It's really wet.
Oh, okay. We've asked about that field numerous times, and haven't really been told much about it. But the information you all just shared is more than I had been told, even though we've been hoping that it's going to come back online for us to use.
You're talking about the Reed?
Yeah, the Reed upper field. Yeah.
Reed upper field. Yeah. I mean,
so it's not in rotation now.
So is it in your allocation for the spring?
I've gotten it, and it wasn't on there.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's been used.
The diamond fields, lower fields, that's available to
So they scheduled you on that. Okay. We'll ask about it. I don't know
the
what's
vault
going
is at the
on.
bottom of the hill.
Yeah.
The upper part was just, they used that for construction parking during the project.
Problem we're having with that field is that the school doesn't want to allow us to use it until 6 p.m. Because they claim that they're after school programs. You have empirical evidence that they don't.
I had the same problem when my kids were at Nottingham. I chose Nottingham as a practice space for soccer, and I ran into the same. You can't start practicing until our extended day kids have.
That goes back to the discussion about the communication. Yeah. I don't want to get into it.
No,
Conversation.
That's fine.
We're talking about this next time.
So I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
in mind. So what's the timing on this? And is this something that is it part of the CIP? I mean, I imagine it's a big project.
I think that is a very big point to this. That's size.
So if you can go to the Lubber Run renovation, stormwater or something.
That's what I Googled.
Yeah, and I think the county's already let bonds.
There was a big bonding effort a couple years ago for like general stormwater because of
right.
that rainstorm in 2019. That was really bad. But this is part of that.
This is part of it.
But it could be used, it have to be used in that specific project.
Yeah, so if you go to the Lubber Run page, and you go to the September meeting, the September 23 meeting, look at the slide. If you look at the video, you'll see a lot of confrontation between Beth Kaiser Civic Association and the engineer. Not very nice to look at, but if you go to the first 8 slides and you have somebody like Beth can walk you through it, or if you look at the video,
Right.
it will tell you that this is a conceptual phase that they're in, that they looked at 8 different other places to put a vault, and it shows you what drainage they're attempting to address. So, because I said, well, what about that huge parking lot and Mount Olivet? And those people are gonna have to start paying the stormwater fee. And the answer was from, well, that's not the right place in the drainage of the topography. It's too high up the drainage. So this park is at the right place in the drainage, and they're going to do a lot of other things too, which is put in some new inlets along the streets. And there's the next thing that's going to happen is there's going to be a meeting in April of all the civic associations at Lebanon that are affected by this project. So that's the picture right there.
Yeah.
And I'm going to share our screen too, so folks online can see.
So I'm just wondering, can DES just go through this project, or is there anything that they have to get approval on before they can?
I don't know the answer. So I would think that they would need some approval. So I don't know when we need to write a letter, but if we get a letter in by the April meeting, we can at least make our views known. That you know, we can talk about what our views are.
I think to answer your question, just looking at this slide on CIP funding, the funding they had allocated for FY 23 and 24 was only for land acquisition and not for capacity improvement, design and construction. And so they're looking, and they did not have any success in acquiring land in fiscal years 23 and 24 in the watershed that they were hoping to acquire. So they're proposing to reallocate that funding for design and construction in the new CIP.
So
that's the like quote unquote approval process that they're at, because they've got this conceptual design. They cannot actually move forward with the actual engineering design until the funding's been moved from the land acquisition line to the design and construction line.
And the history of that land acquisition line is that they had a plan, which would have been very much something we would have endorsed, of buying the properties that were getting the most flooding. They identified a certain number of properties and said, you know, we're not going to be able to protect you. So it's going to be cheaper for us to buy your property and then not protect you.
If you go back to the older presentations, you can see the story of that and when that drops off and when this comes in instead, where I guess they didn't have success, and so switched gears. Yeah. This is the area I work in. This is my job.
Can we hire you?
I know this very well. This whole slide is like, wow, I'm on the clock right now.
This is the slide that you're talking about.
Yeah, this one. So yeah, you can see the very small text at the top. No, we have not been successful in our first land acquisition attempt. Hence, focus is shifting to inlet capacity and other capacity projects within the watershed. And then the highlighted text down at the bottom. New CIP will propose repurposing FY 23-24 funding for design and inlet construction.
Is this one that we think is going to get cut?
No, these stormwater projects were so high profile, like the flooding was so bad. This is like a really big priority.
Yeah, so and it is a big priority, and it's going to affect, if it's not done, it's going to affect the people downstream.
Yeah.
Who, you know, there's going to be pushback from them if this is not done.
This same flood blew out 2 county bridges and lower down in Lubbock Run, in the neighborhood that I live in, and one of them is still not been replaced.
Yeah.
And it's been 5 years. So these floods do have impacts, not just to people living there, but also to county infrastructure, which I'm sure they put a number on.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. I think, yeah. So, I mean, this kind of decision making is not going away. That's my basic point. We have to have improved decision making about making these trade lines.
Do we know where Natural Resources Commission?
Forestry Net, I don't think they've taken this up at all. I mean, I just found out about it, but I don't know.
Yeah, they have not.
They have not. You asked about that?
Yeah, I'm gonna ask them.
Well, if they don't build this thing, what are their other options?
I know, that's what we don't
It's
know.
not in any of the presentations. Like, they don't talk through, they only say this is the recommended option. They don't talk through what other options they looked at.
Well, they did talk about what other places they could have put the vault, and it wouldn't work.
Not what.
But
the
that's
list
not
is
the
looking
same
for.
thing.
That's not the same thing.
All the alternatives, right? In this world, yeah, there's a vault. That's one way to do it. There's also so many other ways you can do. Obviously, land acquisition is their preferred and it's not working, but the questions I would have for them are like, what are the other alternatives that show us that on a map and talk about why those don't work? Not just other locations for the vault, but other approaches in the first place. And then why isn't land acquisition? Why, what's the failure there? Like, those people still have flood risk. Why don't they want to move? And what support could be provided, or like what are ways to increase land acquisition in this area?
I have a question. This seems to be fairly close to the Ballston beaver pond. Sorry, it's got to be named Ballston wetlands.
Yes.
Was that no beaver pond? Is that been involved in the discussion of
Can
when
you
they?
scroll down at the slide deck? There's a slide.
I would.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, I wonder if that was discussed in conjunction, because
Yeah, it's all part of the
This is,
same.
yeah, this is all part of this more resilient lower run, and this is
Yeah.
upstream of that, and this will relieve some of the water.
right,
That is-
Rushing into there.
it's down.
But
Yeah.
even downstream, yeah, but.
Yeah.
All is upstream.
The ball's upstream.
And will hold some of this water that would otherwise rush into the pond, all at the same time. If you're worried about floods of the size or larger that we had in 2019, yeah, I don't think they want to test what the capacity of the pond is to that degree. The whole idea is to slow the water down and to hold it until the initial phase is passed, released, and then allow the stream and the Ballston Pond to deal with it. And they're trying to hold as much as they can, and that's the most obvious spot they can come up with.
I wish they had a graphic showing the entire spread of upstream. But they don't.
I'm trying to find that here, but.
But the other thing apparently is that this vault is only built to, it's not even built to the 1 in 10 year capacity. And so that means it will overflow more than likely with climate change. And when it does that, it's going to make the flood risk higher for the people's houses that are most close to the park. In other words, it's going to be even worse than 2019 for those people, just because this huge vault is going to overflow. And with the pipes weren't necessarily all coalescing at that point, but now they're planning to have all the pipes coalesce at the point into the vault, and now a few homes are going to be really impacted.
We need a presentation.
Yeah. There aren't a lot of great choices here.
But there aren't a lot of great choices, and something's got to be done. I mean, it's the same conundrum as a Gulf Branch, where you can't say no, leave the water mains broken. It's okay if people don't have their water. No, you're not going to do that. But at the same time, there are benefits to the natural resource, and those have to be calculated for. And if we have to sacrifice them, I want to know that it was a rational choice.
I would like to, this is again part of the Gulf Branch discussion. It seems to me informally that the DES is very fond of large infrastructure stormwater projects. And that is a choice that the county makes, either, whether they understand that or whether that's just kind of inherent to their thinking. That is not always the choice that jurisdictions make around the country. Some have turned towards smaller scale green infrastructure projects and instead put in a lot of small ones around to absorb some of that water. And I'd love to hear from DES as to what their thinking is about that. I mean, if they've looked at that, they've decided that those are just, they don't get maintained, they stop working, it's a bad use of funds after they stop working, then I'd love to hear their thinking about that. But it seems to me that they constantly land on kind of the biggest projects possible. And obviously, those are often the most destructive projects possible.
Let me ask a question to the people who are the sports people, like, you know, from my point of view, it seems like a really good place to put a vault is underneath the field, which is never going to grow trees or native plants or support biophilia. But I don't want to throw you under the bus before I say something.
Well,
I think.
I mean, I actually agree with you. I mean, except for the loss of the field for whatever time it does.
Yeah.
Which is.
But if you got more fields, come with it.
Right, yeah, so I mean, that happened at Cardinal, I mean, that's exactly what it was, they closed down the field but it was gonna be closed part of that time anyway because of the school construction,
Right.
but it just added an extra year to the closure of it. I mean, I don't see any reason why, I think it's a good use of space, actually, to do that.
So what about like, the renovations at what used to be called the Career Center? I mean, they're renovating all that anyway. How about putting a vault there underneath where the playground's gonna go?
They could if it's in the right spot. You need it.
That's right.
Yeah, it's gotta
the
be.
actual digging is not.
This is why we want the DS people to tell us what their options
Yeah.
we're evaluating.
And it might be that that's in the wrong place. I mean, it's also where it is in the watershed, right? They're trying to
Exactly. That's
capture as much as possible. And some of these places are just too low down in the watershed, or they're too high up in the watershed. And there's not enough water coming in to capture as much as they can for the disruption and the money they want to spend.
But maybe there could be two smaller vaults, one underneath the parking lot at,
That's why I'd love to hear what their thinking is in terms of the trade-offs that they're making and the size of these projects.
I think.
That also goes to like,
okay.
anybody who's doing any kind of construction work, the county DS often makes the stormwater project a huge part of the budget. Like, look, we renovated the Lion Park Community Center. We had proposed a significant rain garden, and they said, no, you need to build this big cement thing in there. We had to spend like $20,000 on that thing.
The cistern type.
Yeah, just the whole, and it just to us, it seemed way too much for what, I mean, we could have accomplished it in a much more natural way, without all that. But I think they have a fear of things being done that has to be maintained by volunteers.
That's a real problem with
Yes.
the green infrastructure.
Well,
They're not maintained properly, they stop working. Like, they don't decrease effectiveness, they just stop working altogether.
does the county have? Like a stupid question, but still, does the county have a holistic plan for the entire county, or is this done like we had flooding here, so we're gonna fix this problem, and we had flooding here, so we'll fix this problem over here? In where I live, they went down a few streets. There's an underwater stream that comes right out where you and I walked, that runs perpendicular to the stream we walked along at Rock Spring. And that runs through a bunch of neighborhoods, and it's been covered up, but the water still flows through there underground. And they put in a bunch of these rain gardens on the streets. Does the county have sort of a holistic plan for the entire county? Because I lived in the Netherlands for a while, and the entire country is below sea level. And when they decided that they had to do things to survive.
Which was in 1700s.
Well, but it's gone, I mean, it's been a continuous process that they've done. I mean, if you go out on a boat or a ship and see what they've done on the seaside and in the North Atlantic, it's quite stunning. But this was all planned out as one holistic view.
Well, actually, it was my neighborhood.
We're not dealing with civilizational problems here. I mean, this is.
No, but we will be
serious.
eventually. I mean, if climate change
Well-
continues to go the direction that it's going,
Which it will.
It was actually, I just read a book about this, and it was done by these smaller communities, and that's what that's where windmills originally.
Yeah, to pump the
Because
water.
they were pumping the water.
But now they have.
But, and anyway, we
bigger
gotta
windmills.
wrap this up.
It may be, actually. That's a good question.
But to answer your question,
There is a
in the
master plan.
stormwater page, there are, and in fact, the Donaldson Run Trip B was part of the same response to the flood.
So there's a comprehensive master plan, Martha's put up on the screen. It is 10 years old, so that's gotta be up for update soon, but since that flooding in 2019, they've done several watershed level analyses and then various projects like spitting out from those watershed analyses. So I don't know how they connect into they don't connect into the master plan from 2014 at all, because I think they're all kind of inspired by that storm in 2019.
Some of
Which
these-
just kind of shows
Some of these well predate that. like-
how quickly that changes. Yeah, so some of them might be in the 2014 plan, but I
But-
think that's a very outdated assessment. that
And-
needs
Just
to
in wetland.
And the other thing,
Like later than that.
Yeah.
it predates, this proposal predates the Forestry and Natural Resources Plan getting
Yeah.
adopted. So,
Absolutely.
anyway, okay, well,
Very.
is everybody fine if we, stop discussing this? Okay, so we gotta make sure we get in on the recruiting, because as of tonight, we're gonna have 4 vacancies. Sarah is leaving us because she moved. We're gonna really miss her. Before we get to that, I just want to say we have one wonderful applicant, brought to us by Gary Sheners. The problem is she lives out of Arlington County. She lives in Alexandria, but she does a lot of volunteering here. If our commission is okay with that, she's a young person and she's really educated in this area and also very hands-on. I can send out the.
Why can't be the same?
Commute.
But we would love to consider her. It seems to be right now with the county staff still. So we may be coming to you, but I just want to give you an update that we are still rooted for her.
Yeah, as long as, nobody here objects or anything like that. So please tell your friends, we're gonna have a lot of vacancies. We have a lot of-
Application is the best way to do it. We have to get it official, but if they are at all hesitant, I am happy to volunteer my time to recruitment, just to be like, it's actually really easy and fun and fine. Don't worry about it. Like,
Yeah.
I'd be happy to talk about that with anyone.
I'd love to get somebody from Roslyn or some of the other.
Flyer.
I know.
What's that?
Why we do university, flyer
So,
everywhere.
Oh,
we're allowed, no, so
The monthly signs are mildly annoyed.
I think it's the responsibility, I think it is the responsibility of the county to help us with this activity, and that we have staff dedicated to this activity. We meet on it yearly at least, and they've done nothing to help us, sorry. So if there is something like flyering that needs to be done, that's the thing we need to do, because it's always the complaint that there is not a comprehensive enough way of getting to different segments of the population. Maybe flyering is one of the ideas that they're poo-pooed for some reason, we just don't.
Going to civic associations also.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Kind of
did, I read the
coaching,
2 of
but-
them.
No, that's where you get your most dedicated volunteer. And
Yeah.
also, just to say, in addition to the 4 seats we have open, which we have not been having problems meeting quorum, and that's
Yes,
awesome for
you
us,
guys are all,
the real people. But we need a vice chair. Obviously, right now I am vice chair, but my term ends at the end of the year. We will start talking to the people we would like to be vice chairs here. So please,
but
if you would like
think
to be
you would like
vice chair, come to us,
Yeah.
tell us your interest. And because the sooner you get into it, the better it is. You know, you'll get more adjusted to what meeting with Marco and setting.
You'll get to work with me.
It's very
Reads
easy.
your mind, it does things that you just watch.
It is a time commitment, but it's not for the vice chair position, and Jill has to be chair for another year. So you will have some time to
I
learn.
just got here.
I know. You have some time to learn. You have some time to learn, if you're interested. Yeah. Okay.
So now,
Yes.
we have to say a fond farewell to Sarah.
I wrote down a few things that I would like to say. So, yes. Okay, so Sarah joined, so Sarah joined us in December 2020, right at the start of the pandemic, when we really needed some renewed freshness in this commission. It's been a joy to learn from Sarah. I really appreciated her unique perspective, which is rooted in her deep commitment to public service. While we are sad to miss her, and I am overjoyed that DC is gaining another hardworking citizen advocate. And I just want to thank you for your service and friendship throughout these years. I think it's invaluable what you've been able to provide for us. So thank you. And if anyone else would like to share anything, please do.
Been here.
Yeah. I'm really happy for you, obviously. Yeah. It's gonna be, big shoes to fill. Hopefully we can fill them.
But can we call you sometime?
Yeah. Yeah. You read things in the news.
She does everything.
Email, yeah. I know.
I know I've been gone for years, but.
I love getting up.
Well, we look forward to you getting a contract so that you have to come back to Arlington County, make a
There you go.
presentation about stormwater or something like that.
Yeah, maybe one day I'll be APS staff, and I'll be one of the bad guys, but.
They are not bad guys. They are wonderful people. All right. Any other business for the, yes?
As for who will take the site review plan committees that Sarah,
The what?
the SPRCs that Sarah's vacating.
I think I'm back up on a lot of them.
Okay, I just want.
She's been
That was
anticipating this move
intentional.
for a year.
There might be like one lingering that I'm technically hiring on, and I think it's YMCA,
Okay.
which hasn't even met yet.
What
Like,
I could
Okay.
the
offer-
SPRC.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be fine taking
Taking it
over.
on. Okay.
Okay,
And we'll
that can
switch
do-
out you as backup.
That sounds
Awesome.
great.
Okay, did you get that, Melissa?
I did not, but we can coordinate offline.
Yeah.
That one, okay,
I-
perfect.
There's
So
others that
Sarah-
are listed, but I think I'm backup.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not like the hugest thing, but
Okay.
And there are a few, I think, that have 3 folks, so.
that was also intentional.
Yeah.
Great. We
All
love
right.
that, Sarah. Well done.
Okay, anything else for the good? Okay, all right, I guess we're adjourned.
We did it.
We
Good
didn't
job,
have a
Jill.
motion.
2 minutes. You did it.
Thank you, everyone.
Where in DC are you living?
Oh, you could run to be on the ANC there.
That's what I said. I said that on